Welcome to the deep dive. If you're trying to lead anything today, a company, a brand online, even just a small team, you're definitely feeling the noise. And the standard advice, well, it shouts pretty loudly, doesn't it? Be visible, be loud, dominate the conversation. It feels like self-promotion is the only path. But what if that's actually wrong? What if chasing visibility leads to burnout and influence that just shatters under pressure? We've looked at some fascinating sources that propose something really different, a countercultural strategy. Let's call it the humble edge.
Hmm.
Our mission today is to unpack this, to see if maybe leading low is actually the smartest way to, well, rise high and have lasting impact. It's about reframing power, really.
Yeah, and what's striking is how these sources treat humility,
Mm.
not just as a nice-to-have virtue, something soft, but as a genuine strategic differentiator. I mean, think about it. The old command and control style, it's really struggling. It just doesn't cope well with how fast things move now, the complexity, the need for real authenticity. So humility emerges as this, well, the sources call it the new currency of durable digital influence.
Okay, yeah. Durable is a key word there. But we need to be super clear on what we mean by humility, because lots of people mix it up with being weak or timid or having low self-esteem.
Exactly.
But that's not it at all, is it? The sources define it more like strength under submission, a kind of grounded reality. It means knowing your gifts, yes, but also being brutally honest about your limits, your blind spots.
Precisely. And that self-awareness, that's exactly what pride tries to kill off.
Yeah.
Pride is called the silent underminer in some of this material.
Mm.
And it's tricky. It doesn't always look like obvious boasting. Think about false humility, that big show of putting yourself down.
Oh, yeah, the dramatic, oh, I couldn't possibly accept this praise routine.
Right. But it's not genuine humility. It's often just a way to fish for more compliments, to keep the spotlight on yourself, just subtly.
That's a really important distinction because, look, you do need confidence to lead, right?
Yeah.
To attract people, investment. So how do you tell the difference between necessary self-assurance and that insidious pride mask?
I think it comes down to two things. Where does the credit ultimately go? And are you actually open to being corrected?
Mhm.
Pride, even when it's disguised, it cuts you off relationally. You stop being teachable. You can't handle dissent. Genuine humility, though, it creates the space for honesty. People feel safe admitting mistakes, including you. You can say, I need help, or I messed up, without feeling like your world's ending.
Which brings us to this kind of core model in the sources, the biblical one. It completely flips the world's idea of ambition. The path to real influence, it argues, goes through kenosis, that Greek word for self-emptying, not self-promotion.
Right, and the classic example is Christ washing the disciples' feet, John 13. I mean, picture it. The highest authority doing the absolute lowest, dirtiest job.
Yeah.
It wasn't just symbolic, it was like deeply operational.
Yeah.
It set a culture of low-power distance centuries before we had management theory for it.
The leader showing they're willing to do the grunt work.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
highest status person gets their hands dirty.
So, in today's terms, that means what? The CEO takes a tough customer call. The manager admits their project failed first.
Something like that, yeah. That kind of act, that vulnerability from a position of power, it builds enormous trust. Relational capital, they call it.
And that flows right into the next big idea, dependence over self-reliance.
Oh, this one hits hard because our culture worships the self-made myth, doesn't it?
Totally. The lone wolf who built it all themselves needed no one.
But the research points to the dark side of that kind of unchecked independence. It leads to crushing loneliness, anxiety, and a really brittle leadership style. It looks strong, but it can shatter under pressure because there's no support system.
They feel they have to be perfect, invincible, no safety net.
So the counter strategy is intentional dependence. Real strength, real resilience doesn't come from standing alone. It comes from actively building a network of support. Vertically, like with God or spiritual practice, and horizontally with people.
And this isn't weakness, it's strategic wisdom.
Yeah.
It builds trust, makes teams stronger. It frees the leader from that impossible burden of perfection.
Yeah, when you admit you need help, you actually invite strength in.
The sources give some great historical examples, like Daniel in Babylon. Remember when he had to interpret that crazy dream for Nebuchadnezzar?
Yeah.
He didn't say, wow, look how smart I am.
Not at all. He was explicit. There is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He made himself just the conduit.
Total deflection of glory.
And that honesty, that transparency about his source, it didn't make him weaker. It made his influence more authentic, somehow less threatening. Radical transparency, really.
We see something similar with the Apostle Paul, too, talking openly about his weaknesses, his thorn in the flesh.
Declaring that God's power is made perfect in weakness. His limits weren't things to hide.
They became channels for the strength he relied on. It's the polar opposite of projecting flawless competence, isn't it? Turning vulnerability into a kind of leverage.
So how do you make this practical? The idea of a dependence map comes up. And it's not just, a vague idea. It's presented as an actual tool. It has two parts. Vertical dependence.
Right. Things like prayer, reflection, scripture, connecting with the Holy Spirit, whatever that looks like for the individual, that deeper grounding.
And then horizontal dependence.
Okay, let's focus there. That's about the team, the network, right?
Exactly. It means consciously identifying who you rely on for wisdom, for challenge, for support, and then formally building that into your rhythm. Maybe it's a monthly call with a mentor specifically to ask, what am I missing?
It's not just about tactics, but about your blind spots.
Yes, or building team structures where people feel genuinely safe calling out flawed ideas, even yours, especially yours.
It actively fights against that isolation that ego creates. It formalizes accountability.
Absolutely. Now let's shift gears a bit. How do we measure influence if we're using this model? The sources talk about moving from a worldly scorecard to a service intact scorecard.
The worldly scorecard, that's the easy stuff to see, right?
Yeah.
Job titles, promotions, follower counts, maybe company size, money.
Yeah, metrics of status, they reward the appearance of success, often pretty superficial.
But the service impact scorecard, that sounds deeper. It measures effectiveness by contribution, cultivation.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's more reflective. It asks different questions, like how well are you nurturing relationships? Are you genuinely empowering people? What's the long-term generational impact?
Okay, but how do you measure relational nurturing? That sounds fuzzy.
Well, it's less about the number of LinkedIn connections and more about depth.
Yeah.
Like, what's your average response time when someone on your team has a real crisis? How many conflicts have you helped resolve constructively?
Ah, okay. And empowerment.
That's actually quite concrete. What percentage of really critical decisions are being made confidently 2 levels below you, if it's near zero?
You're hoarding power, not empowering. Got it.
And this service focus shows up in everyday actions. The humble leader doesn't just delegate busy work, they delegate meaningful stuff. And crucially, they give public credit. Not just a quick email, but acknowledging people's contributions openly.
The sources also stress listening more than talking in meetings. That's a big one.
Huge. If the leader dominates the airtime, say 60% or more, they're shutting down ideas. Simple as that.
So the humble leader creates that safe space where dissent isn't punished, where people feel the truth matters more than the leader's ego.
Which brings us to handling praise. This is a tricky area. The sources warn against false modesty.
That performative rejection again, oh, it was nothing.
Right. Instead, they suggest the credit outward technique.
Okay, what's that?
You accept the compliment, sincerely acknowledge the effort involved, but then you immediately redirect the praise.
So like, thank you, that's kind. But honestly, Sarah deserves huge credit for troubleshooting that tech issue, and Mark was amazing on the comms plan.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
You actively point to the team or the provision or whatever the source of the success was.
That must build incredible trust. It shows you value their visibility over your own.
Instantly. It reinforces that whole culture of humility and shared ownership.
And this posture must completely change how you handle conflict too.
Oh, dramatically. Pride goes into conflict needing to be right. The goal is to win the argument, get validated.
But this humble edge approach uses meekness, which again isn't weakness.
It's power under control. It means you prioritize the relationship. You prioritize finding a real resolution over just winning.
You go in open to learning, trying to understand the other side.
Yes. The aim is to redeem the conflict. Use it for growth. Strengthen the connection, not just score points.
Because winning the argument but breaking the trust, that's a terrible trade-off for long-term influence. You lose the war for loyalty.
Precisely. It's a very steep price to pay for ego.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the core message seems really clear. The leaders building the most loyal teams, the strongest cultures, the most lasting influence, they aren't necessarily the loudest or the most self-promoting. They're the ones who figured out this countercultural humility and dependence thing. They understand you lead low to rise high.
And it's crucial to remember the biggest effects are often subtle. They're invisible, incremental, and long-term, like those parables of the mustard seed or the leaven. It requires patience, a gardener's mindset, as the sources put it.
Yeah, you plant seeds of service, of humility, and you have to trust the harvest will come, even if you don't see it immediately. That's a tough shift from chasing instant visibility.
It really is.
So that leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, something to chew on this week, drawn from the source material itself. Ask yourself this: am I spending more energy amplifying others or protecting my own reputation? Maybe challenge yourself to make just one practical change this week, based on that service impact scorecard idea, to consciously apply this humble edge framework.